you thought the Paris Agreement that Australia signed up to was about limiting our emissions, didn't you? Certainly, that's what we told you. That's what you were told. And if you believed it, well, you would have been right, at least then. When the government decided that it could agree to reduce Australia's emissions by 26% by 2030, it was on the understanding that other major countries, all of them, would make commensurate commitments. And on official advice, this could be achieved under the then existing policy. So no new tax hits, no billions needed, just a continuation of many of the things Australia was already doing. And as it happens, we are on track to meet our Paris commitments, unlike most of the countries that trumpet their climate change credentials and then criticise Australia for supposedly not doing enough. Most of them, well, they won't come close to meeting Paris. Those that haven't already dropped out of the Paris Agreement, that is, anyway. But unbeknown to you, or indeed to anyone in the elected government, it seems that Australia needs to not only limit our own carbon dioxide emissions, but we also have to take action here in Australia to limit other countries' emissions too. That, you see, was the basis of a New South Wales Land and Environment Court's decision to block a new coal mine because, I kid you not, blocking it because it would lead to more emissions in the countries that burnt Australian coal. These are the so-called Scope 3 emissions, not our emissions, but emissions elsewhere in other countries that our actions will supposedly contribute to. But hang on, is a court really saying that Australia doesn't just need to meet our own commitments, but that we are responsible financially in terms of foregone export earnings and jobs for other countries' action or inaction on climate change? As mad as it seems, this is exactly what this particular court, this activist court, has recently declared. And this tendency for judges to patronise people and to act as lawmakers unto themselves is likely to get worse. A report yesterday suggests that Queensland could soon compel its judges to take Scope 3 emissions into account when approving significant new developments. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm as committed to a healthy environment as the next person, but when some people insist the science is settled and then demand all sorts of radical economic and social laws to respond to climate change, I smell a rat. After all, science was once discovered and considered settled forever and a day. If that was always the case, well, we'd all still dispute gravity. We'd all probably think the world was flat. We'd hardly come at the idea of organ transplants, let alone put man on the moon and many of the other advancements that bucked the so-called settled view of science. The whole purpose of science is that it is forever contestable and forever an evolving discipline. Back to Queensland. Just at the very time when the Palaszczuk government is thinking of following the New South Wales court decision to make Scope 3 emissions a grounds for refusing the project, the New South Wales government has shaken the climate cult's expectations by seeking to change the law that so strictly prohibited this sort of action by the judges. Now, good on you, New South Wales, especially if the Parliament actually legislates to this effect. But despite the best intentions of ministers, I fear the legislation will be watered down by those on the left, and sadly I'm including key National Party MPs here. So I won't hold my breath for change. Nor do I trust the bureaucracy if, given these new laws, if they get through the Parliament, that they won't find a way to get around them. After all, it was only a few weeks ago that New South Wales Water Minister Melinda Pavey had to tell her own officials to get on with a program of dams or get out. So let's not underappreciate just how much the green religion is entrenched in our political backrooms before we cheer on this change. To avoid official subversion and not just to be a case of locking the stable door after the horse has bolted, the New South Wales legislation can't merely say that Scope 3 emissions might not be considered. It must state categorically that judges must not consider Scope 3 emissions in their decisions. It must rule them out as a factor in decision-making. I know that's what stalwarts like John Barilaro, the New South Wales National Party leader, intends, but he will have to overcome the backsliding of his timid colleagues in order to get this done. I'll be keeping a close watch on this, as will others here at Sky, because officials have an ingrained tendency to offer politically correct advice. I'll believe New South Wales is on track when the banned Rocky Creek mine has had its case reconsidered and its approval finally granted. And I'll also believe the world is serious on Paris when the world, and not just us, actually do something. Otherwise, literally and figuratively, Australia is the canary in the coal mine, ending an industry that's made us the economic envy of the world, but not, I fear, for too much longer.